Thank you for joining me. And if you missed my last video, this is my 1977 Fiat 124 Spider barn find. And today it's going to start for the first time in 25 years. Okay, so before I hop in and just try to start this thing, there's a few things I need to do. First, I'm going to pull all the spark plugs out. I'm going to drain the oil. I'm going to drain all the fluids, the radiator fluid, and then I'm going to turn it over by hand just to make sure the engine moves freely. If that goes well, I'm going to disconnect some fuel lines, and then I'm going to get the car in the air. The starter has been disconnected. Hopefully the starter's working. So I'll see if I can get that connected, sorted out, put some power to it, and at least try to tap the key, see if the thing will turn over at all. And if all goes well, I'll maybe squirt a little gas in the carburetor and see if we can get it to fire. Fingers crossed, and let's get to work. Okay, just a quick update. Got the plugs out and, well, let's see. They're not in too bad a condition, but a surprising amount of sludge collected around the top here for an engine that's been sitting for 25 years. So I'm gonna clean off these plugs, put them back in, and really give this a good clean around the plug holes, so that nothing falls back down inside the engine before I give it a good spin. Additionally, I had to pull off the throttle linkage to get to the last spark plug, and when I did, the throttle jammed inside the carburetor there somehow. So I'm going to have to disassemble that a little bit of a hiccup. Hopefully that won't be a huge problem, but it might get in the way of a little bit of a first start here. So get this cleaned up, get this engine turned over. Then next I'll drain the oil, drain the radiator, see if we can get this thing turned over. Let's get back to it. Update time. Things are going pretty good. You can see I've got it a little bit cleaned up now in here in the spark plug area. I've got the new NGKs just slightly hand screwed in there just to keep debris from falling in. The throttle linkage I managed to free up a little bit, so that's a good sign. I might be able to make do with that just to get some testing done. You probably saw some sparks flying. I had to cut off the old hose clamps that were rusted on the radiator hoses. Those came off in fairly good shape, actually. There's not much rot. Obviously there's some corrosion, but the hoses themselves are in pretty good shape. I won't reuse those. Obviously they're old, pretty cheap to replace. Radiator came out no problem. Here it is. Still Still mostly full with 25-year-old coolant, so we'll get that emptied out, see if that's salvageable. Hard to say. It looks like it's in good shape for the most part. A little bit of corrosion around the edges, but I might just stick it on and see if it holds water. And if it does, we'll run with it for a while. The fan turns freely, so we might hook that to 12 volts just to see if it fires up before I stick it back in. But you know, my ultimate goal here is just to try to get to the crank pulley, just to get this engine to turn a little bit, make sure it's free and clear. But I got my big old 1.5 inch socket to stick on there and get it turning. But in all my shenanigans, I found that I can just turn it by hand. I think that's a pretty good sign. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the plugs back out, maybe squirt a couple drops of Marvel Mystery Oil in there, and just put my socket on and have it and turn it through a few rotations by hand. But that's a pretty good sign. After that, I'll go ahead and get the car up in the air a little bit, drain the oil, the rest of the oil, get the starter hooked back up, get the electronics fired up, and see if we can get some power to this thing. See what happens. Sit rep, I'm making pretty good progress. Got some things back together. Plugs are in, the new plugs, NGKs. Went ahead and just temporarily reconnected the old wires, which are very brittle. Put the distributor cap back on for now until that gets replaced, just to get things going. I pulled a few of the fuel lines. They're obviously brittle and broken, pretty bad condition. Some of them aren't as bad as others. Temporarily stuck the throttle linkage back on for now. Got the car up in the air and got underneath it. Let's take a look at that. So we're running into some issues here, but the oil drained pretty nice. Really where I'm running into problems now is with the starter. So if we look up in here, see if we can see. Yeah, so there's the starter. It's in a terrible place above this cross member here and underneath the intake manifold. It's almost impossible to get to. What I've found, if you can see, is that all the cables have been disconnected from the starter, which gives me two questions. The first one is, why were they disconnected from the starter? Is the starter bad? Was somebody attempting to repair or replace the starter? Did they start to disconnect it and then gave up because it's impossible to get out of there? My second question is, where do all those wires go? Where do they attach? And can I get them reconnected just to attempt to test the starter? So that's where I'm at. I'm going to go do a little research, see if I can get these things back on there. But I have a new oil filter. I'll put some fresh oil in it and see if we can get any life out of this thing. Let's find out. Okay, here's where we're at. I think we're making even better progress. So I was able to find a nut. You likely can't see it, but anyway, the starter is connected. Might be able to see it on there. The signal wire was ripped off, so I had to connect a new blade connector. And it's all buttoned up. So that's nice. But it's kind of the moment of truth here. Got a jump pack hooked up. Turn that on. All right, so there's no oil in it right now, so we're not gonna try to run it, but we're really curious to see. This thing lights up. And really, if that starter taps on, it'll be something else. Let's find out. Oh, I got a light on over here. Fasten seatbelts. A little pressure light is on. Heard a little click. We'll just tap the starter, see if it does anything. Ooh, I don't know. What do you think that could be? It hits, clicks in, but it doesn't turn anything. That's not a good sign. All right, well, I guess that's another case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And got through the engine pretty good, got the plugs changed out, got it turned over by hand. Everything felt really nice. Made some good progress there until we hit the starter situation. I got all that buttoned up, but then positive to see the lights come on, see the car power up. Only got to hear the click on the starter. So I guess that's going to have to end it for this one. Next time, you'll probably get to see me troubleshoot that starter, probably replace it, and it looks like a handful of a job to try to get that out of there and swapped out. So we'll see what we can figure out as far as that goes. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.